tests in the air quality of it. They find that there's asbestos in it. They do a little more investigation. They find that there's some in the attic or some around the wiring or whatever. And if they have to do any work to that building or any changes to the structure or demolition of it, have to have specialized hazardous material people come in with the training and proper equipment to dispose of that. So exposure to asbestos causes respiratory tract cancer, primarily the lung, and also some of the abdominal cavity, because it can also be ingested. So the fibers, just because of the particle size the way they are, they can be inhaled, and if they're a little bit larger, they can actually land on your skin and that, or on your food if it's floating around in the air, and you can ingest it. So it's something that's been essentially removed from the market. It's only used for special applications, like for some fire suits and things like that now. Very controlled environments, but unfortunately it was widely used not that long ago, and so it's all over the place around us. Then we get into benzene. This is something that occurs naturally, but can come from forest fires and oil seeps. But it also has industrial sources, which include automobile exhaust, industrial emissions, and fuel evaporation from gasoline filling stations. So the smell of gas when you're gassing up your car, that's actually benzene in there. And the primary cancer with that, when you inhale it, is leukemia. Alright, so coal tars and coal tar pitches. So as the name of it implies there, it's a distillate of coal, used in some industrial but also in consumer products. So it was interesting in talking with my mom about this presentation. She's a registered nurse. She was talking about when she was a nurse's aide back in the late 60s at the University Hospital in Saskatoon, giving coal tar baths to people with eczema. So that's the kind of the greatest concern with it. Like I say, this would be if you live beside the factory that had the big towers of smoke coming out there, the big chimneys. That's one thing. But here, this coal tar is used, has been used in preparations for many years to treat various skin conditions such as eczema, psoriasis, seborrheic dermatitis, and dandruff. Both prescription and non-prescription preparations are available and include cleansing bars, creams, gels, lotions, ointments, shampoos, and other topical solutions and suspensions. So it's still commonly used. So it provides relief to individuals that are suffering from some of these conditions here. It's also registers as an active ingredient in pesticides with the United States Environmental Protection Agency. So it's used in some of our pesticides, and so your cancer from it is of the skin, obviously, when you're coming into contact with it. So that's why it ties down to transdermal absorption as well with the red arrow. Lung, bladder, kidney, and digestive tract. So all different parts of the body. Formaldehyde. And here's another one that you might not think of. You think of it as a little specimen container that maybe you put a biopsy into. You've probably seen that done in some outpatient setting, something like that. You remember back to your biology days when you were dissecting pigs or frogs or something that had been put in formaldehyde. Well, formaldehyde is actually used, the primary use of it is in resins, industrial resins, so glues. Resins are used to manufacture numerous commercial products, including adhesives and binders for composite wood products, pulp and paper products, plastics and synthetic fibers, and in textile finishing. So, having lived in the area that I have for a number of years, I remember when the pulp mill was still open in Prince Albert there, and there would be this horrible smell that, depending on the direction of the wind, would carry as far as Shelbrook sometimes, so 50 kilometers away. And I'm sure that based on, if you look at what formaldehyde is used for, knowing what they actually did there, that formaldehyde would have been in those emissions. And it's interesting to see, working in the hospital and the surgical floor at the Victoria Hospital in Prince Albert, individuals who had worked at the pulp mill who came in with, bowel resections and whatnot for cancer. And some of it, of course, had metastasized to liver and whatnot. So the other thing is in the home that you're living in right now, the plywood, and plywood's not bad because it's got more wood than glue, or the more recently used oriented strand board, which is the flakes of wood that is glued together. That stuff's got, the glue has formaldehyde in it, and there's outgassing. So any of you who've ever done any building or been in a new building and you are putting up the OSB, that smell that comes off of that outgassing, which that outgases for quite some time. There's formaldehyde in that, so being exposed to it in our homes. And it's also registered as a materials preservative for use in consumer products such as laundry detergents, general purpose cleaners, and wallpaper adhesives. So it's ubiquitous in indoor and outdoor air. It ends up in the soil, food, treated and bottled drinking water, surface water, groundwater. It's also found in tobacco smoke. So the main cancers for it is nasopharyngeal cancer, sinusal cancer, and lymphohematopoietic cancer, and specifically myeloid leukemia. So another interesting thing about this is it's found in your emissions from your vehicles. And when I was in the Philippines, in Manila there, I was in the Philippines for 25 days as part of my senior practicum in my undergraduate degree. Nasopharyngeal cancer was the #1 cancer there, according to individuals that I talked to. And the air pollution, you'd go outside and you'd breathe in and you'd literally have black in your nose. So formaldehyde is found in a lot of things, and from the glue that glues together the wood in your house, in your furniture, to vehicle emissions. So in many ways you can't escape it, you just have to be aware and minimize your exposure. And radon, of course, this is something that we've heard about for a number of years, a little more familiar probably. They used to have the commercials on about radon gas in your house, produced in nature by radioactive decay of radium. So it's normal. The thing about it is depending on the area in which you live, the radon levels are higher. And so the cancers that are caused by that are lung and bronchial and tracheal cancers. And then, of course, environmental tobacco smoke. So inhalation is by far the biggest category here. And like I only covered a few of the items that were in the list of known to be human carcinogens. But the thing about tobacco smoke is there's at least 250 chemicals known to be toxic or carcinogenic that are in tobacco smoke. It causes cancer of the lung, urinary bladder, renal, pelvis, oral cavity, pharynx, larynx, esophagus, lip, and pancreas in humans. Now it's one thing if you smoke yourself, but with secondhand smoke or side stream smoke, as they called it in this report, lung tumors from non-smokers exposed to environmental tobacco smoke had mutations of the p53 tumor suppressor gene and the KRAS proto-oncogene similar to those found in lung tumors for smokers. And then you got to think about individuals who smoke with their kids around, right, or in the vehicle or in the home, and how those persons are going to be negatively impacted, and possibly develop cancer. All right, so travel along here down to the transdermal absorption. So chemicals found in dyes, and this sort of piqued my interest as I was reading through. Okay, so benzidine dye classes. So these ones are known to be human carcinogens. The other two that are in yellow are on the reasonably anticipated to be human carcinogens. But the benzidine dyes, those are like your hair dyes. Not so much anymore, but certainly was at one time very common in hair dye. But in all sorts of textiles, leather, cloth, the clothing that you wear may have benzidine residue in it. The other thing about this report that I looked at there from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services is that they talk about these are no longer manufactured in the U.S., so on and so forth. However, the reality is a lot of the stuff is still imported, so it might be manufactured in India, might be manufactured in China, and then imported. So these items that they know are carcinogens and won't allow to be manufactured in the U.S. anymore, but are still imported, and I think that'll be the same case for Canada here as well. So don't buy your hair dye at Dollarama, I guess, is the moral of the story there. These other two amino thraquinone and basic red monohydrochloride. The reason I mention these two is because they're in dyes that are probably in something that you're going to be exposed a lot to during school, is your printer inks when you're printing off stuff there. So your magenta dyes and whatnot, and those are also used in other things as well for textiles of all sorts, to some of the preparations for makeup and whatnot.